All right, let's rock and roll. Bienvenidos. Buenas noches, bienvenidos. Good evening, welcome. My name is Mario Asensio. I am the college librarian and managing director for the ArtCenter Library. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you tonight to a movement through line, a conversation with Medar de la Cruz. Tonight's program is part of Identificar X, which is an exhibition and programming that celebrates Art Center's Latinx alumni. So if you haven't seen that exhibit, I encourage you to visit the South Campus, our South Campus. The exhibition is distributed through our four buildings, and it's really amazing. Let's see. The Art Center Library is honored to present an evening with Pulitzer Prize-winning illustrator Medar de la Cruz. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the board. I know you had a busy day today at South Campus, but thank you for making time to be here today. I want to especially acknowledge Bruce Haven, who Medar, when he was a student here, was a recipient of the Bruce Haven and Linda Weinstein Scholarship. So we want to thank you so much for that. I think a few others are going to try and make it tonight. I wanted to acknowledge them. Sam Holtzman, Associate Provost, and I don't see Karen, but well, I think she's coming. So, okay, thanks. Let's see. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge my library team, Alfonso Huerta, Ozzy Alvarez, Maria Tchaikovsky, our student worker, Julian Quintero, and also Bob Durick from the archives. Okay. All right, so Medar is a Brooklyn-based Dominican-American artist. He holds a BFA in illustration from ArtCenter. He was born in Miami and somehow found his way in Pasadena, California. He currently lives in New York and works as a freelance artist and illustrator. He has created works for the New York Times, the New Yorker. His bold illustrations deal with social justice and the human experience, and they ignite change. Throughout his 5 years at ArtCenter, Medar worked for the ArtCenter Library as a library assistant. And while the ArtCenter Library doesn't have alumni, I like to think that our student workers are library alumni, and we are thankful for the work that they do every day, and we are so proud of the work that they go off and do. So we're so proud of Medar. So while in New York, Medar worked as a library assistant and outreach coordinator for the Brooklyn Public Library. One of Medar's job duties was to provide books through a mobile library to incarcerated inmates at Rikers Island Prison. In May 2023, Medar documented his experience for a piece in The New Yorker. His piece provides a look into the life at Rikers Island. Medar won the 2024 Pulitzer Prize in illustrative reporting and commentary for this piece. It's called The Diary of a Rikers Island Library Worker. And with that, I am really excited, and I want to welcome Medar to the stage for a conversation with me. Let's get started. All right. So, Medar, we're going to have a conversation, like 35, 40 minutes, and then we're going to open it to the public for a Q&A. And this is being recorded. And what else? I think there's a class at 7 p.m., but we might have to scoot out of here at 6:59. So please turn off your cell phones if they're on. Thank you. All right. So Medar, it was exciting to see you in the library earlier today. How does it feel to be back? How on campus after?
It feels great, and thank you all for coming out today, and thank you for putting this together. It's kind of surreal to be back. It's been a long time.
All right. Can you talk about how ArtCenter shaped your development as an illustrator, and how did you find yourself in Pasadena from Miami?
I came here to go to ArtCenter, and the way that it shaped my career or myself as an illustrator was a lot of the friends that I'm looking at right now. You know, a lot of they're out here supporting me right now. They were supporting me while I was a student, and they inspired me quite a bit. So I gave a lot of credit, or give a lot of credit to the friends that I spent the weekends with and the late nights with, for shaping my vision, my career, and a little bit of credit to the professors as well. But I think it was the people who I spent really late nights with that really helped me decide what I wanted to do with my life.
So Art Center is known for like its amazing faculty members. Are there any particular faculty members that really helped you ignite that passion?
It's hard for me to remember a lot of names. I think the humanities teachers don't get enough credit. I'm being recognized for a piece that was written and illustrated. And I would give a lot of credit to the humanities teachers, and a little bit of credit to the portfolio teachers as well. I mean, the illustration teachers are great. The faculty at the library was great. Simone Fujita was great to work under, to work for as an intern in the library. But it's hard for me to say any names right now. I could just speak generally like that.
So about the Art Center Library, are there things, earlier you were talking to a student about, your work with the library, and how that impacted you. Can you talk a little bit about that before we move on to your technique and style?
Yeah, I was describing it as a hack. It was like a way that I could get access to resources that I felt that some people overlooked, perhaps. Maybe being too caught up with doing their work, and some people I don't think spend enough time at the library. There was friends here that I would see who would return certain books, so I would be like, all right, let me check that book out. And I don't know, I just stayed in certain sections, shelving specific sections that I wanted to be around and in. I would often be told like, hey, you gotta, go over there, put stuff away over here. But I would often be hiding between shelves, just like reading comics. But it was really important for me. And when I graduated, it was the only thing on my resume, because I couldn't get a job as an illustrator. That's not like something that you can get a job for. So it was huge for me to have like the opportunity to continue working in libraries after. So.
For a lot of students, especially as our student population gets younger and younger, the library is like their first job ever. So it's really interesting that we're teaching like a work ethic, something that they're getting in the classroom, but they get a different type of like experience working for us. So I really do feel like you are part of our library alumni. So how did you end up at the Brooklyn Public Library, or how did you end up in New York and there?
I ended up in New York. I was visiting my sister. I didn't know I was going to stay there. I liked it a lot, and I stayed on my sister's couch for a long time, and then I was just like, I don't want to leave. And so I was there. I graduated in spring, and I showed up on her couch in July, and I started applying for jobs before the fall or something. And it took a while before I started working in libraries. Like my first job was like delivering food, and then I started working at an art store. Then I got a job in the Bronx at the New York Public Library. And then I stayed there for 2.5 years. Very regular library type job where I was doing a little bit of everything. I did teach computer classes in Spanish, and hosted a couple workshops. And I got the opportunity sometimes to draw on the job, like whatever, the calendar or some posters and stuff like that, when I got lucky. But more often than not, I was like on the desk. Then I got a job in marketing that I kept for about a year during the pandemic, and then I was unemployed for a year, and I was looking for work, and I applied to several jobs, and I saw the opportunity to work in the outreach department providing services at Rikers. And that was the one cover letter that I wrote that I was like, this is not going to be a generic cover letter, you know? And at that time I really wanted a job, and I wrote a cover letter that I felt like I put, like I wrote it with emotion in a way. I wrote it like, this is a job that would mean a lot to me. And I think they told me like that cover letter was what got you the job, I think, you know?
It's interesting because your work deals with social justice, and I feel that libraries. Sorry, your work deals with social justice, and I feel that libraries are about social justice. They're about transforming communities, transforming schools, and so it's interesting to hear that cover letter you wanted to really put all of it into it. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I was aware that that the population at Rikers Island was very Dominican. You know, there's a lot of Dominicans in Rikers Island, a lot of Spanish speakers. I was aware that I had something to offer for that job. You know, I was aware that it would be a community that I'm familiar with, and I had a inclination that perhaps the other folks on my team would not be as familiar with the population as I was, and I was right about that. You know, so I was able to be the person who spoke in Spanish to the people I was providing services to, spoke in a Dominican Spanish, became familiar with people, and then turns out a lot of people read comics. You know, I could talk to them about that. A lot of artists are incarcerated, and I could just talk to them about that. And it meant a lot to me to work there.
right, that's incredible. Can we talk about your Pulitzer Prize-winning piece, and congratulations on that award?
Thank you.
Tell us about the creation of the Diary of a Rikers Island Library Worker. How did it start?
It started with a drawing, with one drawing that I drew and I posted online. And I was essentially using it as a way of telling my friends, like, hey, this is my new job. And that's how I treat social media, like, just, hi friends, this is what I'm up to, what are y'all up to, you know? And like the art director Aviva Mikhailov for the New Yorker saw that post and emailed me and said, hey, I'm very interested in your story. And I had written in the post that I had journal entries, very small journal entries, and she was like, can I see your journal entries? I had to embellish them a bit, right? Write some more.
That's yeah. Can I see your first? Yeah.
Yeah, and I just sent her my journal entries, and over the process of 7 months, we like put together that article.
Right. So this piece here behind us is an extremely powerful piece. I mean, the power of books, the power of information. Can you tell us a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, the drawing that I mentioned just now that I posted online, it was a version of this, a much less how do you say, anatomically correct version, because I was drawing it from memory, and to draw this I had to like look at my hand in the mirror and like think about how things look, and like it wasn't just me drawing from memory. Although this, I mean, I couldn't take this picture, so this still took a lot of like memory and
right, because you're not allowed to take photograph in there, so
yeah,
this is
exactly, and that's what it made me want to do this, because it's like they don't want you to see what it looks like, right? So I'm like, I feel like my job was to show people anyway, like, well, this is what it looks like, you know. And this is at the Anna M. Cross Center, which I think is a facility that is closed down because of just how terrible of a place it is. I mean, not that any of the other places are much better, but that place was really like, it gave me nightmares every time I went there. It's a very dark place, and it was at the tail end of lockdown sort of season where like Rikers Island was very understaffed, and it was a very wild place to be. Yeah.
sounds like a lot of adversity. What would you say was the most challenging about documenting the story?
Going to work is the hardest part at this place. Just going there, and then and it was hard because I had to go to work, and it's the type of job where once I got off the job, I just want to like do anything but think about it, or like try my best to just like put myself in another place mentally. So to like go to work and then come and then like on the bus home, like start writing notes about what I saw, and then get home at like in the late afternoon and like stay up until the late nights still trying to think about this place. Um, it was very exhausting mentally, and it remains because I'm still working on this, on like developing more drawings about this.
You're working on a book, right?
Yes.
Right.
But at the time during, it was stressful. You know, it was stressful to work on this. I, being that it was my first article, I didn't know that. I guess maybe it's not. It's maybe common to a certain degree to spend that many months working on something. I thought, I didn't know. I'm like, after a certain amount of time passed, I'm like, are we still doing this? It was like, yo, this is still happening. Or at 6, 7 months have passed, and I wanted it to be over at some point, you know. So when it finally was over, I was like super relieved, because it was just like it's a lot of work, you know.
This is going back and forth with Aviva
Yes.
from the New Yorker.
And then the editing team who helped me write,
Right.
or who edited the writing, and the fact checking department was very tough. They made the drawing a map was the hardest thing, because that has to be accurate, and it's just very difficult to do that. I was using like Google Earth and stuff, but it was very exhausting. That's, I mean, it's
Why was it important for you to capture your subjects and their interactions with books and library workers?
um, it felt more like an instinct, you know, like I didn't I didn't think about why I was doing it. I felt that I just had to. Um, and even if I didn't get this article, I was already drawing, because I felt like um, I feel like you know, there's a movement that has been going on for decades, I think, to close Rikers, and I believe that Rikers should be closed. Um, I don't think most jails should be open. To be honest, I don't believe in incarceration. I think there's got to be another option, and so um, I think the power of illustration is like, it's sort of like showing, not telling. It's like, look, like, do you think this is okay? You know, like, um, I think it's up to the person looking at it to make that decision. But if somebody can see something and think it's okay, um, then I would like, I don't know, I would love to have them explain to me why, and we can get into a conversation about that. But I think it's the type of thing where sometimes you just have to show something to somebody, you know, and like it speaks for itself. That's how I feel about it.
I listened to one of your podcasts that someone did with you, and talking about just how decrepit the jail system is, how it's been painted over and over, and it's almost like you feel like they painted like just every week.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you find for students here who are always working, how do you find balance for wellness, which is really important in our life today? How do you balance wellness in your life when you have such a job where you go in and it's heavy? It's a heavy job, right?
Yeah. I mean, in that podcast I mentioned, I didn't know how to, and I need, you know, now I have therapy, and I go, I have fun, you know, I go surfing, I go skateboarding, I try to do things that are fun. But I didn't know how to, and I still struggle with that, you know, and I think a lot of people do. It's hard to live in a big city. It's hard to make a living as an artist, and it's easy to let it destroy you, you know.
Do you have any advice for students? I know it's a different situation, but any advice for our students who need to find balance, who are, you know, pushed to like work?
For students specifically, I know that there's like a counselor at ArtCenter, right? I didn't go to that counselor once. And if I could go to myself as a freshman and say, hey, sit down with the counselor, Like one time, like what's it's not gonna kill you to sit with the counselor and tell them how you feel. This is part of you're paying the tuition. It's
And
there.
we do have those resources here. So
Yes, and I didn't take advantage of it. I say, like for example, like people are not taking advantage of the library enough, but there's other resources that people are not taking advantage of. Maybe the school is not advertising them enough, or maybe the counselor is not advertising themselves enough. I don't know, but it probably would have been very helpful for me to sit with a counselor as a student because I had a tough time as a student here, and that's have fun. I don't know, like relax a little bit. It's gonna be intense, but I think that it's not. It doesn't have to be toxic either. It's you chose a creative path. It should be something that you enjoy doing.
we have the second image here. Oh, thank you. We have the second image here. I guess it's you listening to the radio and maybe looking for news on your phone. When I can you tell us about what's going on in this image?
Yeah.
And I just kind of described it, but
This is a Sony FM. If you don't have a Sony FM, get yourself a radio. There's like the NPR. I don't know. That's listening to Brian Lair at 10 a.m.
oh, that's cool.
The radio. I don't know. I really like I really like having a radio, not just for the news, for the music too. At the time and still to this day, at least once a week, there's like so and so died on Rikers Island. So and so was murdered at Rikers Island, etc. And this time I was working there when like there was like a record for how many people died at Rikers in what a small amount of time. And I'm like listening to the news and I'm like, all right, well, I gotta go there now, And it was like that was always in the air.
Yeah. When I saw this image, to me, what came to me, I was thinking of how the importance of us being informed and getting the right news and not falling for like fake news and being just informed. And just want to make a plug that libraries have traditionally been fighting fake news, and it's a place where you can go and get information. So
Right.
to me, I was like, this is like still library related and where you get information. And so it spoke to me. So
Yeah, sure. The librarian in me had to like fact check that on my phone right away. And like, yeah.
that's great. If we can go to the next, oh yeah, thanks so much. So we see a strong influence of comics and graphic storytelling in your work. And this image is the text you wrote for it, and you can't see the text, but the text that you wrote for it explains that the Department of Corrections didn't give you bookshelves. Could you explain a bit about?
Yeah, no, there's something that is ridiculous about the Department of Corrections. One of the many things. It's such a giant facility. It's an island with like 10 different jails, and you're walking around these narrow walkways, but we're always seeing like empty rooms. Like, hey, there's an empty room there. There's an empty room here. Why don't we have any space for our books? And we ask, and we're like, hey, could we get access to a space? And they would just be like, sure, next week. And years went by and nothing. And I have coworkers that have had the job for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, haven't gotten access to any resources. So it's like they let us go and provide services so that they can tell the world like we have these resources, but they don't treat us very good at all. They don't want us there. It's I don't know why. I don't know what the mentality is. I don't understand it.
Right, because you work for the Brooklyn Public Library, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. And by the way, when you got the award, I have to say that my phone blew up by librarians, like all over the country. Librarians at Pasadena Public Library, the county librarian for LA, Sky Patrick, who used to work at Brooklyn, and she's like, "Do you know this guy?" I was like, "Yes, he used to work in the library." So there was so much excitement when the news broke of your award. So. So
That's cool.
So this next image here portrays a diverse group of inmates. This made me think about how the inmates and workers might have taken your story, and you kind of started touching on this. But do you know if they had a chance to see it? Do you know if the workers got to see it?
No, I honestly didn't. I was like hesitant about, especially the people that work there. I found out that somebody that were like the people that the programs individuals who help us facilitate our program were not happy with my article at all, and they thought that I exaggerated or something when I actually had to tone it down quite a bit for the New Yorker. So going back to the bookshelf, what came from that was more bookshelves. Like apparently they realized like, oh, we gotta give them at least one bookshelf or something because they're gonna like go on the news and like tell everybody. So we got some bookshelves, but like two. But this specific facility, this is the North Infirmary Command. So this is like mostly elderly folk and people who need medical attention. And by the time the article came out, I was no longer working here. I moved around to several facilities because our library team was so small, and we essentially would move to the facilities that we felt that the programs people cared a little bit more. And we're like, well, here they're not like even giving us any bookshelves, so we should go over there where at least we have some bookshelves. And it's like at the end of the day, we only saw maybe 10% of the population, if not less. There's thousands of people on that island, and there's only like 4 librarians going in our team. There is a team for the Queens Public Library that is even less, like maybe a team of 3, and a team for the New York Public Library, which is like the New York Public Library is like the Manhattan branches, and they got a lot more money than Brooklyn, and they have a bigger team and bookshelves and like access to like they have like a real library in the women's facility, but that wasn't.
Are you aware of if the books are actually making an impact on people's lives?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Can you talk a little bit about that?
yeah. I mean, there was people that were like, I need number 19 of The Walking Dead, like, and I'm asking you for the 40th time, and like I'd be like, we don't have it. Then we finally get, after 2 months, 3 months, I'm like, I have something that you're gonna be very excited about right now. Give it to them, and then people are like extremely excited, like, oh my god, this is gonna make me, you don't understand how much this means to me. This is like we get told all the time when we get something that somebody's been looking for forever, or something that somebody read when they were like a teenager and they haven't seen in 20 years, and they're like, oh my god, like I cannot wait to reread this. Or maybe something that they can't wait to like bond with their son about because it's like a book that they know that their son is reading, or like a series that their kids are reading or something. People tell us every day that we're there that that's like they would say something like a common thing somebody would say was like, they tell us when we get to watch TV, but they can't tell me when I get to stop reading or something, like, so it's like a entertainment that they get the power over.
Yeah, I know that library services and correctional facilities are very impactful. I've known a few correctional facility librarians. One who did worked with children's books and worked with mothers to have the mothers read the
we did
story, and then send it to the children.
Yeah, we did
with
that.
The voice.
We did that. I did that a couple months ago at a federal facility.
That must be powerful.
It was extremely heartbreaking. Yeah.
In this image here, we see an inmate asking for self-help books. In many countries, prisoners are, and you were talking about like Dominican. In many countries, prisoners are held under harsh conditions, and denying them access to books is seen as a form of punishment. Do you think that books play a role in mental health in inmates as well as
I hope so. It's I don't think the space should exist, So I don't think that the book is making a that big of a difference. They're still in a space where no matter what you give them, they're still there. It helps, absolutely, but it's like putting a Band-Aid on like a gushing wound, and it's like, it's not doing much. I don't want to like give too much credit to the library as if it's changing the spaces that they're in. It's still incarceration. I don't think that it's, but I do think it makes a slight bit of a difference. And some books are empowering, and some books may even help somebody make a decision about make them reflect on their own life, you know, in such a way that can inspire them and keep them pushing, you know, in a place where they can otherwise feel like giving up, you know.
Yeah, but I think some books like The Walking Dead, many of our students will go off and do illustrated books, and those books are still inspiring. Taking kids from, like, I grew up in the inner city of LA. For me, the library was a sanctuary where I could go and read a book and be in a different city. And I'm sure it's doing the same thing for inmates as well. And just taking them and just letting them forget that they're there for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, these are incarcerated people that are just the same as anybody else. And oftentimes, like, people will ask me, like, what type of books do these people read? And I'm like, they're just people, just like you and me. They're going to read specific books. They're not different, you know, like, there are types of books that are popular, perhaps because they expect them to be popular. I have a whole debate with my coworkers about this all the time, about urban fiction, for example, and how popular urban fiction is in Rikers Island. But I think it's like a matter of also I advocated a lot for bringing in other types of books. You know, like, hey, I know you want to read number 6 of this series or whatever, but have you tried this? You know, have you ever heard of this person? And what it does is it gives them something to look forward to. Like, our services are not just the books themselves, but the librarian pushing the book. And, you know, what's the weather like out there? You know, like, we talk to them, we have conversations with them. And that's what I think libraries should be credited for, not just the books, but the people who work for them. It's the only service, even outside of the jail, that people can go home with, like, a physical object without having paid a single dollar, you know. I don't think there's anything else. If there is, please let me know. There's nothing else like that, you know. And what you're going home with is something that you picked out. It's not something that they picked out for you, you know. So it's like, it's empowering to make that type of decision as an incarcerated person, as a person in the free world.
This last image here, this is this is you, right?
Yes.
Walking out. Can you tell us about this image and how you created it?
Yeah, I could have drawn my coworkers, but I was tired at the end. This is my last drawing, and I was like, I'm not gonna draw 2 more bodies.
You didn't want more months with Aviva going back?
No. And this is my last drawing, and I was like, anatomy is no joke. I'm not gonna, like, so I say this is what my coworkers saw as I pushed the carts, or maybe what the correctional officer who was escorting us was looking at, or maybe it's like a third person, like an out of body sort of experience. I mean, there were days where I went by myself, but I always feel like I gotta give credit to my coworkers, just like I was saying earlier. Like, it was a team of us, you know, and here I am by myself. It's a very rare occasion that I'd be walking down the hall by myself. But this is the NIM Cross Center, this, like, mile-long hallway of bars, and it's like a nightmare situation. Yeah, sometimes those bars were closed and nobody was there to open them. It's terrible.
And you get to go home, right? I mean,
and I get to go home. That's what people would love to tell us every time. Like, hey, you're getting, because they would hear us complaining about whatever, and like, hey, you're stuck. We're stuck here. You know, you're going home.
So we're at about 35 after, and I know that many of you may have questions, and I want to maybe open up the floor for questions. There's a microphone on the side over there. Simba.
You can come up and line up here to if you have a question.
You could yell it out too. I mean.
Oh, I'm short. Hi. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm Solveisko. I'm the staff senior writer in marketing and communications at ArtCenter. I'm writing an article about this event. I had a question. I have a very close friend who's been a longtime librarian in jails. She was a Queens Public Library head librarian, Neely Ness, at Rikers.
I was in this building with Neely.
She's one of my closest friends. So she's told me so much about her work and also worked now in San Francisco jails.
Yes.
tell me about what brought you to want to do this. You talked about an emotional letter you wrote, but what actually brought you to this point of wanting to do this job? And secondly, second question is, what has the timeline been like and process of trying to create a book out of this? Okay. And the challenges and the rewarding part of that. And congratulations on the Pulitzer, because that's huge. So thank you.
I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, but I spent a couple nights in jail in New York, and I remember the DA, the district attorney or something, was like, sent me an email one day, knowing that I was an artist, and it was like an opportunity to work with like youth that are coming out of jail, right? And I almost broke down in tears when I saw that, because I felt like all of a sudden, like, oh, I can turn that terrible experience into something, you know? And that's what I wrote in my cover letter. I opened up about that in my cover letter. Now, only a couple nights, you know? It's not like, these people are spending sometimes years, and, you know, this is jail. This is different from a federal facility, but you know, I have trouble sometimes saying that, especially in front of a big crowd. But that experience made me, like, when you're sitting there and you're like, this place exists. Like, this is a terrible place, you know? This person is over here screaming for medical attention and he's not getting it. There's this bathroom is, the toilet's not flushing, you know? Like, it's just like so many things about this experience that you're like, this is how people in the best city in America, New York City, are treated? Like, really? In the best country in the world, supposedly? Like, really, this is how people are treated? That's what pushed me to it. Not to mention, I'm a person of color, and, like, sometimes, like, I'd go in this, you know, all the time, 99% of the people are people of color, you know? And I feel like I'm trying to do something for people who look like me, you know? That's what inspired me to seek this out, and with... it's not just another job, you know. It was like something that I felt it was like a calling, and I tried to get a lot of other jobs. Nothing else was happening for me at the time. I worked in a marketing position before that, and, like, pays well, but it was terrible. I hated it, you know. I mean, I'm sorry if there's marketing people here right now. I know there are, but for me, it was not it. You know, I'm sure that there are people who thrive in those situations and, you know, have families to raise and stuff. So I understand. So.
Simone.
Medar, you know, I'm so proud of you. Oh my gosh. But I actually have a question. I didn't come just to hype you up.
Simone Fujita right here.
I really appreciate what you said about the unique role that library staff play in libraries, and, like, you know, advocating for patrons and people in the community, but also that, you know, they play a special role in bringing something to the library. Like, libraries are not just books, like you said. It's also important to have the services that people provide and those connections with other humans that librarians and other library staff provide.
Yes.
But going back to the collections, I was going to ask, on behalf of, like, students here that may not know the library collection as much as some of the library staff do, what are some recommendations that you have? What were some favorite parts of the library collection that you want to make sure people check out?
The magazine section. I would go through every section. I don't know. I mean, I was really stuck in there's like a whole graffiti section. There's a the photography section is great.
The zine section?
The zine is great. How could I forget? Which you put together, I was saying. Yeah.
Zine section?
The zine section is the only section in the library where current students have their work in the library. You know, that's huge, huge. Forever. I mean, apparently I saw some of the zines that I did on the table now, and I was like, it's still in good condition too. And it's like, I don't know if many people have checked it out, but they was there. Hopefully it stays there forever, I hope.
Thank you. No, you could talk about other sections. I just had to make a plug.
The zine section.
Even though I don't work
I
there
feel
anymore.
terrible that I forgot that. I mean, it was there. It was only there for like the last year that I was there, right? Like, I feel like it grew, but I feel like you put it together like around the tail end of my time being there.
But you did a lot of work to promote.
I helped with that, yes. Yes. And I helped you, the zine workshops that we worked on together were the best. I modeled a lot of my career after that in a way. Like, even as a student, I went ahead with Joya. I don't know if Joya's around, but we hosted some zine workshops. I hosted a zine workshop at the La Pintoresca branch. And I basically copied exactly the same workshop that was happening, but I did it it was great.
You guys did a great job.
So Medar, I hope you know that you were part of the library's Art Center's first Institute and Museum Library Service grant. I think that grant was for about $25,000, and Simone helped to do that. Fabulous, Simone, thank you. But as a result from that, we've actually had two following grants. The last one being just under $200,000. So it's our largest federal competitive grant that Art Center has ever received, and it really goes to that first one because they're looking at the reputation. Can you do it? And so that first grant that you were a part of really helped us get that bigger grant.
I'm so glad. Yeah.
And that's thanks to the work of development as well, too.
I'm Medar.
Hello.
My name's Mark. I work in the library. I'm a research and instruction librarian, following in Simone's footsteps. Hello, Simone. My question is, are you at all interested in doing sort of long-form comic book work like Joe Sacco, who does things about Palestine and the Native Americans, sort of reportage in that form? I know it's not what you do, but I'm sure it intersects with what you do. Do you have
That's
an
exactly what I'm
interest?
trying to do. That's
Right.
exactly what I want to do next. I mean, this article, I had to put it together under pressure, and it was a collaborative project, which I don't think my art director, Aviva, gets enough credit for. I think that this project behind me was a collaborative project. But because of that, in a way, I also felt certain limitations that I think if I were to when I put my book together, I'm hopefully not going to deal with as much. And it's going to be a book that expands upon this in a way, not necessarily an adaptation, but fills in the gaps of things that I didn't feel like I got to talk about. And it could be several years before that's out, but that's the next step. So thank you so much for asking.
Yeah, I'm sure you'd have an open door at Fantagraphics or anywhere.
I hope.
Yeah. I did have one other little question about your process. When you see this image, obviously you're sketching and you're doing various sketches, but when you get to near the final image, do you sort of have a loose sketch and you work primarily with the brush to get that, your vision on page, or do you sort of pencil more tightly and ink? Because you describe your process a little bit. I'm sure that it's different for every image, but
Yes.
generally speaking.
There's 2 images that I worked on with only inks, and most of them were some inks and plenty of Photoshop. The opening image is only inks. It's sitting in my flat file. And the one with all the characters from like a bird's eye view, that one's all inks and no editing. But most of them, the one where the person is asking for self-help books in the solitary space, that's a section where, because we're going to one cell at a time, it would take at least 10 minutes sometimes, and way longer with certain individuals to get a book. So I would just be standing there. And I drew that one like in as it was happening, and like I quoted that person as they asked that really quickly. And then I would go back to that space, and I would be like, I started really paying attention to like the way that the lock looks, and like there's the mechanism of the lock. So I drew that lock in person again, like several times, while people take their time looking through the back of a book and stuff. A lot of images I had to like sort of collage together with like footage like that I found, video camera footage that I found in different articles and stuff, and yeah, a lot of photoshopping, but only maybe 2 or 3 are done just pencil and ink alone. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, very much. And last question, librarian question, like, can you tell the students who some of your influences are, particularly some that you may have found in the library or just anywhere?
You mentioned Joe Sacco, huge influence. My friends. I mean, I have some very talented friends, I would say, whom I get to see work. I could name drop them. I mean, I see Chewy right there. He does amazing work in ink. I see AJ right there, another amazing comics artist. I see Jules, an extremely talented artist and designer. Hertz is amazing. I mean, familiarize yourself with these people. They're amazing. They're right here. Patrick can draw really well. Alejandra is amazing. Billy is great. Jacob, Tom, look at all these people. There's very talented people right here. Chris Youssef over there. Oh my goodness. Tyler. I mean, I could name drop. Oh, Garrett got to make it. What's up, Garrett? Uber over there. Uber could draw like really well, you know? I mean, wow. I could name drop people who have already gotten their flowers and are already famous, but I happen to be like surrounded by extremely talented people, and they kept me up at night feeling that I needed to make my drawing a little better, because I knew that when my article was ready and done, these are the first people that are going to see it. And they just are so good that it's like I'm almost like driven by envy. Like, I need to be a little better. Like, my friends are so good, you know. And they're also so supportive. I can't believe they're all here. So I, you know, my heart right now is huge. And I love you all so much.
This is great. As I look in the audience, it's like, oh, it's a mini library reunion too. It's like,
yes,
people I haven't seen in a long time. Welcome. Any other questions? We still have a little bit more time.
There's time. There's 10 minutes for existentialism.
My name is Samantha. I'm with Outreach and DEIAB for the Bizarre competition, which is a new role. But I've heard a lot of instructors talk about you need to find that part of yourself that makes you distinct and you in your work. Do you think that you always knew that you had that social impact advocacy mentality, and was that part of you, or do you think that could be part of your, for some people it's family legacy, for some people it's, actual experiences, but
So the first thing that comes to mind is there was a club called Chroma, and that was like the club where all the black kids were, you know, and mostly the black kids, right? And I was like, one day as a first term student, I was walking around in the hallways, like when most of the classes were still at Hillside, and somebody just pulls me into this room, and it's like all black people in the room. And it was huge. It was like, I was like, what the hell is going on here, you know? And like maybe a year or two later, they were like, you want to be the president of this club? and I took it on, and that was like, I think, kind of the beginning of feeling like we had to like be a presence and stick together, because I personally never had a black teacher or a black professor at ArtCenter, or even a Latino professor at ArtCenter. In the 5 years, it took me 5 years. Some people graduate in 2, you know. It took me 5 years, and I never had a teacher that even remotely looked like me. So it became almost more of a, I mean, I went to like a president meeting once. Like I forget the name of the president at the time, the president of ArtCenter, and I remember just saying like, we need more black teachers. We need more black illustration teachers, because I know that there's some in the other majors. And it started as a student, this feeling of like, where are we? And feeling, and then when I graduated, Donald Trump became president, and like, that just became like something that I felt like I had to speak up for, because I felt like we had a racist president, and I felt like I had to like speak up more about it. But as a student, I was already making work I had an amazing class called Illustrative Journalism. I think that was the name of the class, where I started making work that was about race and about incarceration. I think that answers the question. I'm not sure.
I have a kind of a follow-up question to Chroma, and because we've had a few student associations dedicated to people, BIPOC students, ArtCenter to LGBT students. Students have told me that they feel that the library is the safest, that our library is actually the safest space on campus. They feel welcomed. They feel safest there. Ozzy, you just sent me an email last week or earlier this week that a student told you that it seems the most welcoming space to them. I mean, I hear these things from students that it's so powerful, and yet we don't have a library at South Campus, which is I think it's a shame, but it's something that we're working on. Any thoughts about your time here at ArtCenter? Was the library, did it feel safer for you? Did it provide that for you?
Yeah, I mean, Simone was there. That helped a lot, I would say. Yeah, I mean, you get to hide between these shelves. Something about something about reading a book. I've always seen it as like a whisper. Like I can be on the train or whatever, or in the library at ArtCenter, feeling like somebody is whispering something in my ear, and it's just coming out of this book. And it's not in your face so much as like when you're walking the hallways. Sometimes like some of these, like you'll see like these really buff transportation students like, and it's like it's not. I don't know. Maybe all the X-Acto blades everywhere make you feel unsafe. And there's like these machines cutting giant pieces of like clay or something. But the library is like this quiet space. You're supposed to be quiet.
I've been told to be quiet in the library. Yeah.
Yeah, the library is a haven.
Yeah.
It scares me that some students that are illustration students maybe don't go, or maybe rarely go. I hope that if I was a professor, it would be an assignment. Find this book on this subject and bring it back.
We're trying to do more of that. So
yeah, that would be great.
Let's see. I think we're almost at time. I don't know. Madeline. Who's a Dominican librarian at Los Angeles Public Library.
I'm containing myself and not ramping and giving you a hug and calling you my cousin.
De lo mío.
So, I'm Dominican. I'm from Santo Domingo, and I've been in the U.S. since 2005. I am a librarian with the Los Angeles Public Library, and I'm also involved with Mario with Reforma, the Latino librarians. So, number one, I have a question. As a Dominican, you know that I like to know things. We like to know things. So what were you eating in that illustration where you were sitting the previous one? Were you eating some
It wasn't mango.
tostones?
It was for breakfast. I was probably having some like oatmeal or something, but in an ideal situation, it would have been a mango.
Okay, I know. I agree with that. Then how do your family pronounce your name?
Medar.
Medar, exactly. I keep hearing Medar. I said, no, it's Medar.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
good.
a tough
good.
one.
Okay.
Everybody that's my friend here still says Medar. I know for sure. And I'm not the type to, as an artist maybe, I'm not going to be like, no, say Medar. Because some people are, but it would be cool if they tried a little bit, but.
Yeah. Medar.
This is my PSA. If you could say Medar, you could try.
Yeah.
It would be greatly appreciated. But if you can't, then I totally understand. Because I didn't start getting comfortable with saying that until I became more like, I don't know, I had more like sense of self, and like I was less self-conscious in general, that because I would just, people would ask me how I pronounce my name, and I'm just too shy. I'm not really that shy. I make up for it in other ways, but when it comes to my name, I was like, you can say it however you want.
Oh, well, Medar. Last thing, do you have a future in libraries? Continue? What is the art libraries?
I
know, I
I'm
will
going
see
to
you there.
LA tomorrow. For the next 2 or 3 years, I want to focus on drawing. For the next 2 or 3 years, but I do think to myself, like, even if I'm not a library staff, hosting a workshop and being a presence in the library in New York or wherever I am is a priority for me, absolutely. Especially because in New York right now, they just closed library services on Sundays for the entire city of New York. All that funding is going to the NYPD, and it's just like more and more libraries are becoming less accessible. I'm sure nationwide. So I think I will always have like, it's always going to be in me to push towards keeping them accessible. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're at time, folks. There is a reception up in the library. You're all welcome to come and join us. So hope to see you there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Medar, and congratulations.
Thank you.